Okay, welcome to part 2 of lesson 19, where we're going to do the calculation of the directions for exercise 8.1 using Python and NumPy. So the first thing we do is we get our library, so I'll run that. Now I need to input, I'm just putting that into comments what I'm doing, I'm going to input in the B1 matrix, that's the columns of the equality coefficient matrix corresponding to the basic variables. And then I also need the non-basic columns. So what are the non-basic columns? They're AX1, AX3, and AS2. Okay, so if you think about it, this is all coming from that A matrix, and it's just different aspects of it. Okay, so B1, what is that? The basic columns, the first row of the basic columns is 1, 1, 0. The second row of the basic columns matrix is 3, 0, 0. And the final row is 6, 0, 1. AX1, the first non-basic column, is 1, 2, 6. AX3 is the basic column, this is the non-basic column 2, 4, 2. And finally, AS2 is this identity column, 0, 1, 0. Okay, fine. So now I need to form the inverse of B1. So I'll just calculate that. That's using the NumPy library. This is the hard calculation that I didn't want to have to do by hand. It's np.linalg.imb B1. Okay, and now I know that my direction, the basic components of the directions, which I'll call db x1 or dx1b is equal to b1inv dot dot ax1, and then I'm just going to copy and paste this. This is sort of what I can do when I use computer, right? I can say, oh, let's just use the fact that I'm basically doing the same pattern, except I have an x3 column here and an S2 column here. And of course, I better make sure that I name these different things. X3. And then also, I want to print them out. I mean, this is only going to print out the last one if I leave it like that. So I want to print them out. And I'm going to print out something that tells me what they are, just to help you all see and remember that what I'm printing out here is the basic components of the direction. So in particular, this is dx1, and what is the first basic component? Remember, that's x2. And then the second basic component is s1, and the third and final basic component is s3. So that equals this dx1b. Okay. So this is something that I've noticed that students sometimes have a problem with when they get to this part of the simplex method, that the unknowns in the direction correspond to the basic components. Okay, so it's not like this computation gives us the whole direction, it just gives us the basic components. Of course, the non-basic components were already known. Those were, 1 for one of the non-basic components and the 0 everywhere else. Okay, so and I can copy and paste this too, because this is actually the same as well, except instead of x1, here we're using x3, and here we're doing s2. And I want to make sure I get the right component here, the right direction here. Okay, now let's print that out and see what happens. Okay, so I see that my directions, the x2 component, s1 component for the first direction is 1/3, 2/3, 1/3, and 2. And it's 4/3, 2/3. But you know what? I did a problem here. What was my problem? I didn't put my minus signs in. So let's make sure we do our minus signs. I was thinking that doesn't look quite right. So let's put in the minus signs. And now they look right. Okay, good. Minus 2/3, minus 1/3, minus 2. for the basic components of dx1, minus 4/3 minus 2/3, 6, that's the basic components of dx3, and minus 1/3, and 2 for the basic components of a ds2. Note that for dx1, as you'll see, what this means is it's the overall direction is actually 1 minus 2/3, 0 minus 1/3, 0 minus 2, right? Because what we've computed here are just the basic components. Okay, so I'm going to stop this here and get back to the tablet, and I'm going to write in what these values were. I'm not going to stop that video when I do the computation for the directions for the next iteration and the succeeding iterations. I'm just going to write them into this notebook and upload this notebook. Okay, so when you get to that part of the computation there, you might want to stop and look back at this notebook and see what